Hey, Dr. Rob, great to
Good
have you
day to
back in the
you.
house.
Thank you, Tammy. I appreciate it. Let's go disco dancing now.
There you
Rob is in the
go.
house.
There you go. Okay, so the first question, Dr. Rob, I put in the answer so you can follow along. Can you expand on betrayal blindness? I feel like all these years my SA husband was acting out, I didn't see it, but now that I look back, it all makes sense. I know no one before disclosure. I know no, not even before disclosure that I'm pretty sure he's done some things that put my safety at risk. I told him I'm starting to put the dots together and I can no longer be physical with him and I can't see myself ever being physical with him. Thank you, sober. I don't, that doesn't, you definitely is not fully recovery because he was basically had a bad tantrum about, we are supposed to be working on this. And what's the purpose of doing a disclosure if can't make things
So,
better?
so
50.
Tammy, I think there's
Yeah.
a lot of questions in here
Yes.
already.
Yes.
Why don't we just pick the first one and then maybe you
Yes.
can pick another one. So the first one that I
Yes.
want to pick is why didn't I see this coming? I think that's kind of the question, right?
Yeah. Well, it not even coming. How could I have blindness to this all these
Right.
years? And now as I'm looking back, I'm going, oh, oh, oh.
Well, I hate to sound trite, but the frog in the boiling water comes up for me, which is, and in case you heard it a million times, I'm not actually say what it means, which is, if you're a frog and you jump in some water and it's really hot, you jump out. But if you're a frog and you're in the water and it slowly goes up a little bit of time, you will boil to death. And excuse the term, but that's the truth. And so the point is that we adapt, human beings adapt, and you adapt a little bit at a time, even in good ways. Like, how did my kid get to be 5? It just seems like yesterday they were 2. Well, how did I miss all those years? Well, you didn't miss all those years. A little bit at a time, you adapted. And I think that's one of the things that I struggle with is, and I hope what is not in this question is blaming yourself, which is how could I not have seen this? What's wrong with me? And I don't think there's anything wrong with you. And the other piece is, and Tammy, when you love somebody, you don't want to think badly of them. When you love somebody, you've heard me tell the story of, the mom who's, I'm making this up, the mom whose kid went to school with a gun and terrible things happen. And the police come to the house and mom says, oh, not my son. He never could have done that, because you never want to look at the people you love as being people who could really, really hurt you. And so between the adaptation and not wanting to see someone I love hurt me, I can understand that you get lost in that and not realize. Oh, and by the way, putting the pieces together, I really like that part, which is when I do consultations, which I do with couples, I'll hear often like, now it makes sense. Now I understand. I always felt like, why did you go out when we were on vacation? And why weren't you home when we were doing this? And why were you always late? And I could never quite put it together. And now it all makes sense. And I think that's frequently the experience of a spouse. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I was also thinking when the addict is really good at blame shifting and gaslighting, you like there, yeah, the addict is really helping you keep those blinders on and just look, just look over here. Don't look
That's
over
true.
there. Yeah. So to me, a lot of this probably falls in that category too, where, and I say this to partners all the time. You would never do this. So your brain isn't thinking, I wonder if he's telling the truth. You're going, well, of
Right.
course he's telling the truth. He's my partner. We're
Right.
doing life together. So your brain thinks differently, and that's a good thing. And but it's one of those things where you've been told, all along, oh no, I would never cheat on you. I would never do that. Like, I love you so much, which is, I'm confident, true, but it's also, part of those, I want both. And so in recovery, we learn to do things differently, which brings me to the next question that I will pull out of this is, and then he's switching over. I'm like, first of all, you're talking about doing formal therapeutic disclosure. So the point of that is to set a foundation, for recovery and healing and moving forward. And you're like, why would you even do this? And I can't imagine ever being intimate with him ever again. And I'm like, you guys are so early in this process that
Right.
abstinence maybe is at best where he's at. He may just not be acting out, which is a long ways from doing things differently and not having a tantrum, and all. So I would talk to a partner not too long ago and I said, Dr. Rob talks about, putting a relationship in safe harbor. And that just means like, we're going to not make a decision right now. We're going to see. And so like I got really caught up in this, early in recovery, the always and forevers and nevers and all of it. And it's like, just for today, he's not safe to have sex with. I can imagine you don't want to be intimate with him. But if he does this work, you guys can have a better relationship than you can even have imagined, but you're not there yet. You're not at that point on the pathway. So give yourself some grace and time and see. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, Tammy, you're absolutely right. It's like saying, you're kind of saying to yourself, well, someone's been smacking me across the face whenever I walk in the kitchen. I can't imagine why I don't want to walk in the kitchen anymore. Well, probably you don't want to get smacked in the face. So it's going to take time for that experience to start to go away enough for you to feel like, okay, it's safe for me to walk in there. And it's the same thing for your body. And by the way, I really encourage you to respect that and not question that. Your body is telling you, I don't feel safe, and you need to listen to that. Okay, let's keep going on. Let's
No,
keep
I
going.
got two more things to add to this. So we have
Oh,
a
okay.
betrayed partner work group, and if you have not
Ah,
participated in that, it started last week Wednesday, and I've added a few people to that group, and we will offer it again probably late October. But you can be added to that group. Those are online work groups, and we have them for out of the doghouse and sex addiction and porn addiction. They're listed on our website, the seekingintegrity.com website. But the betrayed partner one specifically, part one, and I heard from Angela, it's a really good group. Of betrayed partners again this time. So it's done via Zoom, $375. Email me, Tammy, Tami at Seeking Integrity if you want to be added to that. But we will offer it again in October. The other thing is, please be leaning into, we've got drop-in groups for betrayed partners that will help support you while all of this stuff is going on. There's a lot of work he can be doing, and we've got drop-in groups for him. We've got work groups. We've got lots of resources, but you have only control over you. So take care of you. And then, none of those decisions, if it's a good decision today, it'll be a good decision tomorrow. So take the pressure off of yourself to have to decide. You don't. You've got time. Okay. My partner, who is a porn addict, and I are in a long distance relationship. What are some tips for me and my partner to remain intimate apart from each other, because we both value and crave physical intimacy, and the time apart from one another seems to make my partner's intimacy issues worse? Does the time apart worsen my porn addict's partner's intimacy issues? I also struggle on my end because I'm not there with him in person to witness his actions, so it makes it hard to trust him. He has said that it's especially hard to not act out coming off an amazing weekend with me full of sex and physical intimacy.
well, I have lots of thoughts about this, Tammy, but I wonder maybe if you could take it on first, because I'm sure you have a lot of things to say about it.
Well,
Um,
I just want to, like, it doesn't surprise me that, like, when he's had a great weekend, I mean, like, I hear this with major life events, like the birth of a baby or some other major
right.
situation, that an addict will go act out. It's
Hmm.
so it's the familiarity, it's the numbing out, it's escape. So but for the Dr. Rob has talked about this before too, and he'll probably talk about it now. But intimacy is not just sex. It really is the connection, and you guys can connect in lots of ways. Even if you're physically apart. I mean, we've lived through COVID, for goodness sake. So where people were very distant. So how do you communicate with each other, and support and nurture each other? That's different than just being together and having great sex. Like hopefully when you're together for a weekend, it's more than just having physical sex. It's like really experiencing each other and getting to know each other, on that basis as well. So thoughts?
Well, I want to add to that, Tammy, that you and I have probably been on a retreat or two with addicts, and when they get out away from the retreat, they act out on the way away, and it's because the intimacy and the closeness leaves us feeling really abandoned and uncomfortable when we're alone. And so, just to put that out there, is if you have an amazing weekend together, he or she's going to walk away from that feeling like they miss it, like they have a connection, like it's gone away. And so, by the way, I saw Sex and Physical Intimacy. I didn't hear anything about nurturing, movies, dinner. I'm going to
Right.
take care of the dog, but I didn't. I heard amazing sex and physical intimacy. I didn't hear anything about Come on in now, you old thing. I didn't hear anything about, the relationship and the connection, and especially if you're not near each other and not together, that would concern me. Also, there are a couple other things I wanted to say about being in there. Go on, lie down now. Which is, you said, it makes it hard. So you said you're physically apart from each other and that he's a porn addict. And then you said, I don't trust him. And so all of these things don't really go together for me. It's like, here's someone who is a porn addict, but you're in a long distance relationship, and addicts already have problems with intimacy. He, I guess it's a male, I don't really know, is spending their time acting out sexually online with images. And then your relationship is all about images and disconnection. So there's a piece missing for me. And what I would say the piece is honestly missing is, are your needs getting met? Are your need for trust, your need for safety, your need to enjoy each other in ways that are non-physical, your need, who's holding you during the week, who's spending time with you? So I'm just concerned that there's a lot of focus on, I don't trust him, and is he doing this, and is he doing that? Are your needs getting met? Is this what the kind of thing that you want to play out? By the way, I was reading an article once, Tammy, about people who live apart, and it was saying that, and date and spend time together and all that. And the one thing that they're not challenged by is, I'm trying to think of the easiest way to say this, is learning how to share, you know,
Oh,
that when you don't live with someone and you get together and spend 3 or 4 days, you don't have to worry about, well, do you want to do this week, or do you want to do that? Or, I'd like to take the dog. You don't have that opportunity or that challenge to constantly have to be, well, I want, and building that connection. And so there, long periods of time of not living together can, I think, leave a piece out that's difficult, that helps couples to grow. So I worry the whole thing doesn't feel right to me. That's all I can say.
yeah.
Any other thoughts?
Well, I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, I mean, like being, we talk often about your podcast with Dr. Stan Tatkin called We Do, and it's like you and me in a relationship, we're working together towards something, and that's a negotiation and navigation. But if it's
Right,
always like I'm separate, and then we can have this amazing sex weekend, and
right,
then I go back and it's like it's the non-reality. It's not,
right.
paying the bills and taking out the garbage and all
Who's
those
going to the
things.
grocery store tonight?
Yeah,
By the
yeah.
way, I have to ask you, Tammy, and I will tell you folks, the name of the podcast is Sex, Love, and Addiction. And we
Hmm.
have, I don't know, we're getting on 1.5 million. We have a lot of downloads, but I
Over
want to.
1.3 million. I haven't looked lately,
So,
but it
Tammy,
was
my
over
question to you
1.3
is, did you
million.
listen to the second episode with Dr.
I haven't
Tatkin?
had a chance yet, but I will
Because
because
it's
I
so
love that.
good.
Yeah, there's so many
Okay.
good things on that. So,
All
okay,
right. So what we got next?
the next one you get to answer because you know how I feel about polygraphs. So, what motivates the essay to admit to a polygraph examiner, but when begged by his wife, he can't? When the wife says she can move on if he tells the truth, he doesn't. But magically, in front of a man, he admits. Why the games?
Well, I'm not going to go into the polygraph issue here because it's not necessary. This is someone who, and actually, it's a very good question. The question is easily answered, is that if I lie to you, I can get away with it. If I lied to you, I can manipulate the truth. I can get you to believe something that isn't true. I can tell you it only happened 4 times when it happened 3. But we have a belief, and I don't think it's true, but certainly we have a belief that if I'm going to take a polygraph, they are absolutely going to tell whether I'm telling the truth or not. So of course, in that moment, the what do you say? The gig is up. Now I
Yes.
realize that I'm going to get caught, and nothing I say, now how charming I am, know how much I distract or blame you, I'm going to get caught. And so the idea behind not telling you is because I can get away with not telling you. And the reason for telling the polygrapher is, oh, I guess I'm going to get caught. At least that's my experience. Do you have any other thoughts about that piece?
Well, only that that's not what a polygraph measures is honesty. So,
Right.
so I will just caveat. So if they believe that they'll get caught,
Right.
then
That's
maybe,
that's
yeah,
that's
yeah,
it.
yeah. So then it's their belief that they will get caught and they may,
Right.
fess up. So, but I mean, I have multiple calls today from people who are struggling like they want to try to be truth telling and they still struggle with that even if they're not acting out in the moment. It's like, and I was, I always say, what's in the, what's the benefit for you of not telling the truth? Because there's, you're scared of what's going to happen. There's something that you perceive as a higher value than being honest. So that's work for for an addict to do. If you're at this stage in the game, I'm pretty sure that, Dr. Rob's book, Out of the Doghouse, and there's a work group on this, is about learning to tell the truth. He gives an example in there about somebody who got divorced over taking out the trash. And the partner was like, if you can't tell me the truth about taking out the trash, what else are you lying to me about? That's the, that's the problem. And that's the rub. So in recovery, in real recovery, we learn to tell the truth, so to me, that's the bigger issue. Is it's not just that he's not telling you, he's, I think he's still holding on to things, for himself too.
Yeah, and I want to throw out something for the polygraph. If nothing else, you believe in it, you don't believe in it, you think it's helpful, you think it's not. I don't. I could take a polygraph today and then go back to acting out tomorrow. So yeah, everything I tell you is absolutely true. And it's been polygraphed and everything. And then as an addict, I'd be thinking, oh, good. I'm telling you, as an addict, I think, oh, good. Now that's part's over. Now I can go back to doing what I was doing. I know that's not right thinking, but as an addict, that's where my head goes. So I'm not sure it does anything except say what happened in the past that about, you think it's the truth because you think polygraphs are about lying. By the way, Tammy, tell them what polygraph is about and
I
why
did
we're
a
not big
bunch of
fans.
research. Yeah. So I did the research because there's no efficacy, there's no protocol. It literally measures stress. So if somebody's highly stressed, they will fail. If somebody can lie without, stress, they will pass, even if they're lying. And I hear both sides of it all the time. So I get partners are looking for safety. I get it 100%. But what you're looking for in a polygraph is not going to give you what you're hoping for. Now, if he passes, if you believe it, then you have in my opinion, a false sense of security. And if he fails, you have a false sense, maybe he's lying. I don't know. But, it measures stress. It does not measure honesty. So just keep that in mind, that what you're seeking is not what you're going, is not the answer that you're necessarily going to get answered. So.
Thank you.
And I'd have to dig it all up, but I literally did all the research. So, okay, my SA partner rubs himself sometimes. It seems almost subconscious and at times, but he is also aware of it sometimes because he'll stop immediately when I enter the room. I'm concerned because it seems like he is intentionally trying to excite himself and that it will lead to acting out. He repeatedly says that he's all in on working on our relationship, but struggles with sobriety, follow through, transparency, resentment, lies, narcissistic behaviors in general. He waxes and wanes in efforts to do daily recovery in Thanos. He says this behavior of rubbing himself is none of my business. What is he doing, or what is he doing this for? And should I be concerned?
Well, I don't want to have empathy for him telling you it's none of your business. Clearly it is. But I also want to say that from his perspective, the reason he's telling you that is he's so ashamed. And whenever you bring it up, he's reminded of, oh, I'm doing that again. I can't believe I'm doing, because I do think so. In answer to your question, my experience, and I don't see this often, but it's often a sexual abuse survivor or a profound abuse survivor who learn that touching themselves calms themselves, and touching themselves, even little kids, when they touch themselves, their genitals, it feels good. It doesn't feel good in the way it feels to adults, but it does feel pleasurable to them. And there are some people who really learn that when they're very young as a means of soothing themselves. And and I don't know why, Tammy. I'm just going to say this. This seems silly. I've seen men like adjust themselves in public, and it's like they don't even think about it. It's like, don't you realize there are 12 people walking by, and you're kind of doing this? And so I don't know if it's something about men where we just think, I don't know, but I do know that when I've seen that behavior, and I've seen it in therapy, and it's often they're not aware of it. They're not just sitting here trying to excite themselves. They're not really even there. So I don't think it has anything to do with you. I think that's really important to note. It's not about you, but the other parts, and the immediate thing came to mind, Tammy, was this is someone we should invite to come to our treatment center. The
I thought the same
narcissism,
thing.
the
Yeah.
lies, the trauma. See, I think we're not aligned. We don't share the same brain, but we've done this work enough, Tammy, that when we hear a particular
Mhm,
story, it's like, oh yeah, that person needs that kind of help. And there's something really troubling about this
mhm,
particular story. So,
mhm.
did you have feedback?
Well, I did, because the waxes and wanes, and says he's committed and all of that, and I suspect he's getting stuck, because like part of me goes, I really 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 want that, but I don't have the tools to be able to do that, and like Dr. Rob said, and I didn't know that about the profound abuse, but it would make sense to me as well. But in order to get that in us, to be safely cocooned, that's what I say about the guys that come to us, they're safely cocooned, so that the clinical team can do the deeper work and help them, get through that. It's never going to be completely behind, but you get through that, so you're in a different place. I also was thinking, I wonder if when you walk in the room, like he might catch himself, doing that, and then it's almost and I don't want to say parental, but kind of might feel like, oh, I got caught. Like you talked
Right.
about the little kids. It's
By
almost like,
mom.
yeah, yeah. And so like it puts you both in a very, problematic, situation. So yeah, I will put the link in for our residential program. But and I had somebody that wrote not too long ago, and they said, I won't get it completely right, but like life changing. But it was like, I found myself the part I didn't even know I had lost, and I was like, oh, and that's what I feel like. There's so much stuff in here, and there's a lost little boy in there somewhere, and and the opportunity to heal that, is transformative for both of you. So consider
Hey,
that.
Tammy, I don't
Yeah,
know if you ever saw that movie, Nymphomaniac Part One, the one about female sex addicts.
I did
Um,
not.
it's actually a very, obviously, I wouldn't suggest that a sex addict see it, but one of the things you see is a girl who's profoundly neglected, profoundly abused by her mother, and you see her around 7 beginning to touch herself and learning that that makes her feel better and distracts her. So, by the way, it isn't just boys who do this, girls also find ways to distract themselves with extreme abuse or extreme neglect. And I guess the reason I thought of residential treatment is that someone who's doing that, some really bad things happen to them. Some really bad things happen to them is my take on it. So anyway, let's
Yeah.
keep moving.
Okay. Betrayed partner, addict partner has acted out serially throughout 17-year relationship, married, 2 kids. I waited 19 months for formal therapeutic disclosure that took place in February, still waiting on restitution. We are in couples therapy for the last few months. I feel like our relationship has atrophied so much during the acting out years and recovery years that we are both focused on individual healing and work. I struggle with how to connect with him now in healthy ways. It feels like we just see and hang on, let me go see if I can find the rest of it. Oh, and here, I found it. And experience the world so differently now, and it's hard for us to relate to each other. Is this messy middle part normal? And to feel this way as a betrayed partner, is this my trauma keeping me safe to see us so differently, or is this real that the connection may be lost and we are now different people after all the damage? Those are great questions. So thoughts
Yes,
on
and
that?
I don't think we can answer all of them, but the first thing that stands out for me is I waited 19 months for disclosure.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I don't know who this person's therapist is, and I never wanted to value another therapist's work. But when I worked with a couple, 2 months at the most, I can't imagine being a spouse sitting there week after week, month after month, waiting to find out what's happened. And I wonder if the addict has gotten a little too much leeway in this situation for it to take such a long time. But anyway, to those of you who are just beginning this work or doing this work, and if you're a spouse, I would not feel comfortable like, well, it's okay to wait a year and a half until I find out what has happened. That just wouldn't be okay with me. And that really struck me, Tam, because it bothers me. It bothers me for the spouses, that they're somehow expected to wait, like their whole life isn't on hold. Um,
Well, can you
so the
talk
other
on that same thing about, I mean, it's been 6 months for the restitution. Like, to me, there's no accountability. Like, so it
right.
was 19 months and then 6 more months. I mean, that's over 2 years,
Yeah, I just,
So,
I don't, and I don't, Tammy, we never know what's going on in the therapy. We
right.
never know what's happening. We never know. Someone could be drinking or using and want to kill them. Who knows what's going on with them? And so I can't judge that decision, but I do know that it's going very slowly. And the slower it goes, the harder it is to begin to think about moving on. And yeah, it's been 6 months and you still don't have a restitution letter. It's kind of like, how do you move on if you don't have a foundation to build from? And this just seems like it's going on and on and on and on. So I'm not sure you're in a situation that is as helpful as it might be toward driving you toward healing. But yes, it is very normal to feel this way as a betrayed partner. It's only been 6 months since you got the disclosure. That's not a very long time. That part isn't. So yeah. And by the way, it's one of the, so we have a lot of clients in treatment right now at the program. And I want to say one of the things one of them said to me today, I'm going to say this in a different way than it was said to me, was something like, well, I'm not sure whether I should stay in my relationship or not. I don't know if it's the right one for me, is basically what was said. And when we got down to it, it turned out that that person had been acting out during the entire relationship, so, or close to it. So how do you really even know what you have when so much of what you have has been covered by lies and secrets and, all of that stuff? So it's too soon in a way to know what you have. There needs to be a period on the end of this sentence and then a plan for going forward before you're going to be able to know. So my answer is, to me, it's too soon to tell, and this is going on much more slowly than I would want it to.
Yeah, and I'm going to go with the healthy boundaries for you. We talk all the time about healthy boundaries for partners is for your safety. And what are the, because you're not, like, I just feel like there's zero accountability for him. And it's not your job to be the accountability, but for you, like, yeah, I'm doing my work and we're getting more distant. And, are you doing Thanos check-ins on a regular basis, ideally daily? But, what are you doing? Here's one. There's a couples healing from betrayal work group that starts September 21st. Really good. Dr. Susie LeBrock teaches that. We only offer it twice a year. It's a small group of couples, but it's about communication. It's about, healthy sexuality. There's a whole bunch of topics. You can see it on our website. But to me, like, this feels like he can do the restitution letter or not. Like, there's, so I wonder about asking your qualified therapist about this, and how that your qualified therapist can talk to his qualified therapist to see about, a time frame, and a deadline for these things. And, but in the meantime, yeah, unfortunately, you are stuck in the middle. Go ahead.
I want to add one thing, and I may have to move this poor puppy.
Yes.
He's shivering a little bit, but you don't know what your spouse is saying to their therapist. You don't really know what's going on there. And Tammy has a very good point. I think, a lot of times I hear, well, you can't talk to my therapist, or that's my private therapy, or, that kind of thing. Or my therapist said we have to wait another 6 months for disclosure. You don't really know what's going on in that room. And when you're doing addiction treatment, I really think it's okay. Well, any kind of therapy, we have a word called collateral. If Tammy or I are in a relationship and I'm in therapy, it is okay for the therapist to invite Tammy in as a collateral person to give information. It could be my sister, could be my friend, it could be my coworker, or sponsor. They're giving collateral information so that I can get a better picture. And so I think it might be useful, as Tammy was saying, for the four of you to get together, or for you to, there's missing pieces here that don't feel right. And I think there could be a lot more alignment than there is with the professionals. So
I agree. Okay.
When you see me looking this way, I'm looking at the dog.
Yes.
So no.
But you can, as long as you can hear, then you're good. Okay. My
I'm here.
sex addicted husband will be attending an IOP program starting next week. Can you elaborate on how IOP differs from inpatient, like Seeking Integrity? I would prefer he attend Seeking Integrity, but part of his addiction has caused an enormous amount of debt. So he is only willing to try insurance covered options at this point.
Well, Tammy, I honestly think you are you answer this particular question. When people call and they're trying to figure out where to go out of treatment, or what therapist should I see, or what is the path, or what class, or residential, Tammy is the person to answer that question. So would you be willing to give this a start?
I will start on this. So yes, so an IOP is an intensive outpatient program. So Dr. Rob talks about this all the time. It really comes down to willingness. So if he is really willing and really engaged and holds the boundaries, he can do very well with that, so it kind of depends. On our website, we have a little self-assessment. It's only a little thumbnail thing. It is not like what we use for people coming into our program, but it'll give you kind of an idea. And if you score, a 7, that's very different than if you score a 17. Just like those are just, numbers, but it really does help us gauge, what level of help. So, so one of the things that we look at when clients come to us is money and work issues. And we actually screen across this. If the under earning or overspending as a result of addiction, that's a key piece of information. So, and even with IOPs, they are not all created equally. So the challenge for this is, and I'm not saying he will do this, but the challenge is this stuff is really triggering. And then they go back home, or they go to a hotel, or they go to a sober living place, or they go act out. Like this happens all the time because they're really triggered and churned up. So the difference with our program is that the guys are safely cocooned with us. There's an awake staff person at all times. It is like we create an environment so so they can do that deeper work. If they're triggered, guess what? There's an awake staff person to talk to. There's other peers to talk to, but they're not going off, on their own. So I think, and I don't know, which IOP, we do a series of online assessments because we want a treatment plan for that person. We have a specific aftercare program. We have a family specialist that is, speaking with the betrayed partners while the clients are with us. So we, and you can see the information. It's on the Seeking Integrity site. We talk about length of treatment, 14, 21, or 28 day. We list all of those things. We're seeking integrity. We try to be as transparent as we possibly can. But we're really looking at, it isn't just heads in beds for us. That's not the point. The point is we want to help people. We want to help as many people as we can be on a different path. I mentioned the life changing. I love it when I hear that from partners and spouses too. So if he really leans in, if he's got a solid aftercare plan, if he is, if he follows the plan after he's done with the program, he can be on a different path. And, and the reality is we're here. We get lots of people who go to another program of some sort before they come to us. So I hope that isn't the case for him. I hope he gets it. You deserve to have, him be on the other side of this. No vacations, like we talked about, no vacations from recovery, but to be through and have a really solid plan for moving forward, that would be healing for both of you. Other thoughts?
I just want to add, what is an IOP? It's an intensive outpatient program.
I said
and
that.
Those I'm just repeating, sorry, I'm sure you did. And the reason I bring that up is because it's not residential in the sense that you are going for a period of time. It could be every weekend. It could be in the evenings. It could be all day for a couple of weeks. And what Tammy was saying, I think is particularly important, is that which one is the best suited to this person? What is the best form of treatment? And by the way, the ones that are, I ran an IOP for many, many years and before I did residential, and it was a good one. But I got to tell you, when I had a gentleman in for 2 weeks of treatment and he went home to a hotel every night, his spouse was horrified and terrified and what's going to go on. And we actually had to switch all of the evening stays to them staying in a recovery residence, drug and alcohol residence, because we didn't want them out there. I also think that sometimes you really need to get out of your life. And, treatment it's like going on vacation. I'm a much nicer guy because I left home and I put my stuff down and I took care of me. And I just, I got away from work. And I'm not sure that if someone's coming home every night or if they're still working or other things are distracting them, that they're going to get what they need. The other thing I wrote down, and I think this is really important, is what do you want? What do you want? What will make you feel safe? I heard you would prefer this, but he is only willing to do that. It doesn't say, we couldn't put this on a credit card or we couldn't figure this out. What I heard, what I see, and I'm not telling you to do your finances, but I'm just saying I would prefer this. I hear that from a spouse, but his addictions cause a lot of debt. Get that. So he is only willing to start to try. But what about what you want? And what about the fact that, is how do I say this? One more time. he's getting to dictate the rules that he lives by. And there are a lot of, I think Tammy could tell you this, there are a lot of reasons I can point to, well, I can't do it because of this, I can't do it because of that. So I'm not telling you to go into further debt, but I whatever your circumstances are, but I question how this is playing out. I question what you're being told. If someone was able to secret that much money away for sexual acting out, what else do you not know? And Tammy and I say all the time, get a hold of those finances and take a really good look, because you may not know what the heck's going on until you see it yourself. So we can lie about a lot of things. So anyway, let's keep moving.
Okay. Somebody says, welcome back. And I said, it's nice to have you back. So when it
Thank
comes to
you.
arousal template, I learned you cannot add on to it, but you can discover things on the menu, so to speak. That being
Right.
said, is it possible to be attracted to certain body parts about a person and not the person as a whole? Like being aroused when you see certain body parts?
Well, that's an so these are different things. So let me talk about the
Yes.
first part, which is that, let's say I'm bisexual, and I never really knew that. I always thought I was just into women, and I saw men were attractive, and I looked at it a little bit, but I didn't really. And then I started looking at a lot of porn, and all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, I'm really into men. What that means is that that's a part of myself that I didn't know about, that I didn't understand, that I didn't connect with. But it doesn't happen because all of a sudden I saw a lot of porn and I thought, oh, I want to do that. There has to be something inside of me that resonates with, and I may become more aware of it, but it just doesn't happen. I just don't become interested in it because I saw porn. So that's the first part. The second part is, um, many people are attracted to certain body parts. I could tell you pretty clearly the parts that attract me. So I don't think that particular thing, and I don't understand that or know the depth of the question. If you're saying the only thing that ever arouses this person is this particular thing, that sounds kind of like fetish to me. But if you're saying that the first thing they're attracted to and the thing that really turns them on is that, I think that's not unusual. So I think we'd need more information about this to know what to do. Ooh, he laid down, but he's moaning. I think we need more information, but Tammy, what are you thinking?
Well, the only thing I was thinking about is the objectification, where I'm now compartmentalizing people into body parts. I'm not looking at them as people. So it's one of those things. If the attraction is let's put it this way, for non-sex addicts, it's easier. You're attracted to who you're attracted to and all that. But when it comes down to, I'm just focusing on the body part and I'm not seeing the person as a whole, then I'm not looking to engage or be in connection with that person. I'm just focusing on the body part that has become, that is part of my attraction. So, if it's part of the, like, oh, I would like to, I tend to be drawn to people that have a certain body type, all fine. If it's part of, I'm looking at the whole person. But if it's, I just care about that body part, that to me feels like
Yeah,
compartmentalized
like I
objectification.
said, we don't have enough information, but I really like what Tammy said, which is, if you're more focused on objectifying the person than actually having any kind of connection with them, that's even a bigger problem than which part turns them on.
Yeah.
The question that comes at 5:05, is that the one that we have next?
Yes. What testing should be part of an essay's
Right.
neuropsych exam? Can you shed some light on the process?
I think that's something that you should write Tammy about, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. She and I will be able to give a better answer. I think that's kind of a complex, sort of researchy kind of question. And I think there's probably more personal ones, but I don't want to turn you away. Write a note to Tammy and we will answer that maybe one-on-one, or write you a note or something, like,
Yes.
or point you towards someone who's a
Yeah.
professional, or some book
Yeah.
to read, or some
Yeah.
links, or
And if you're looking for that particular thing, we know people that do that. Like, we don't
that
do
do it.
that as a one-off, but we know
Right.
people that do. So, okay.
And we do it as sometimes a part of residential treatment. So someone
Right.
might be in treatment and we have to do some kind of psychiatric or psychological. That does happen in treatment. But like Tammy said, we don't do them because someone comes just for that.
Right. I'm the betrayed partner. Where would you begin if you're trying to identify whether someone's behavior is actually compulsive or driven by something else, like simple ignorance or something more serious like dissociation?
Well, I just want to say, if you're asking that question, it probably, well, let me back up. compulsive behavior is driven by other things. It's not driven by ignorance, by the way. Nobody, I don't say the double negative. Nobody doesn't notice that they're masturbating 5 times a day. No one doesn't know, oh, gee, I'm going to massage parlors 3 times a week. Well, I never really even thought that was a big deal. People know what they're doing unless they're extremely, mentally disabled or emotionally disabled. So that's probably not the right way of saying that, but different. So, but anyway, if this is a functional human being, that they know exactly what they're doing. And acting out is dissociation. Dissociation is like spacing out, disappearing. Drinking is dissociative. Gambling is dissociative. Anything that can really meaningfully shift my mood and shift my attention and take me out of where I am, that is dissociation. Now, some people need drugs and alcohol. Some people need a behavior like sex. Some people just simply lose themselves and space out. But addiction is a form of dissociation. So I was going to say earlier, something is bothering you about this, and you're looking for an answer that I think you already know you have. But it does sound like that, and I wonder what information you're being fed, by the way. No, it's not what you think. It's this, it's that, it's this. It feels like a little bit of look over there. So, Tammy, you have other feedback?
No, I was nodding my head. I think it's, like a little bit of this is kind of like, it feels like you're looking for the why. Like, why is this person doing this? And at the end of the day, this person is doing this, and so how do you stop the problematic behavior and move forward? But I mentioned earlier Dr. Rob's book Out of the Doghouse, and we have a work group on that, and it's for men who've been caught cheating. And some people will come to that because they've cheated, and if they have, and I don't want to use just cheated, but I'm going to, that's different than somebody who is compulsively cheated, serial cheated. If there was a one time or I acted out in Vegas, that's different than the compulsive cheating. So they're either emotionally immature or they have a compulsive, issue. And either way, they're cheaters, like so it's like, okay, here's where you're at. How do you move forward? But I feel like Dr. Rob said that, it's like, oh, look over here. Oh, no, it's because of this. I'm just, of course you're dissociating. You're looking to numb out. You're looking to escape. You're looking for intensity. You're, all of those things and cheating. So stop the problematic behavior and move forward in a different way.
Oh, one more thing. I have a feeling you don't know everything. Just watching this,
yeah.
I'm thinking there's probably more information that you don't know about, or you're either not being told or you just haven't found. But I think there's more going on than you know.
And I'm going to tag onto that because I had another one today. Well, she asked, and so I told her, and now this poor betrayed partner is traumatized beyond, like, way too much of the gory details. So just know there's more. And again, there's a problem. How do you move forward? How does he get the help? I'm going to say he, but how does that person get the help? Again, there's on our website, on the homepage, there's a self-assessment. It is not enough, but it is at least a little bit of an idea. So that would be a good starting place. You can keep track of the number of yeses. You can email me at Tammy, Tami, at Seeking Integrity. Tell me what the score is, and I'll do my best to give you appropriate resources based on that, number. Again, it's not the be all end all, but it does help. Okay. My husband, betrayer, and I are preparing for formal disclosure, and his CSAT, the center director, is not being very accommodating to us regarding setting the date time for this. We have to figure out our logistics of being away from each other. We have expressed what is feasible and comfortable for us, yet it is very inflexible and quite terse. It has been almost 8 months since D-Day and feeling kind of torturous as formal disclosure gets delayed. I will be the only woman with 3 men, 2 therapists, and my husband. So I think all the more reason for sensitivity and feeling supported and accommodated. I am not 100%. I'm looking for.
I want to throw. I think there's a lot of questions in here.
Okay, go ahead.
About it's like, what do I do? How do I handle it?
Okay.
What is safe? I was thinking, Tammy, what occurred to me is maybe one of the women's support groups or partner support groups that, and by the way, we don't charge for half of the work or more that we do. There's all these, 14 online groups and literally hundreds of webinars at this point and podcasts. So I do want to say, when Tammy says, well, this starts on this date and we charge you that, that's a very small percentage of what we do. Doing that allows us to give everything else away, like this, like the podcast. But in any case, This feels like a woman who is not getting the support of other women or the direction and by the way, I got to tell you that the best support you will ever get is from other women. It is not going to be from your husband. It's not going to be from a male therapist as much as there's something about being with other women who've been betrayed. So even if there isn't a question, my answer to all that is, how many female support groups are you going to, and how many other betrayed partners are you talking to? Other stuff, Tammy? I know you weren't
Well,
sure
to
about
me,
this.
it's, I actually know a little bit more of the backstory on this one. So it's one of those things where I really feel like, I mean, everybody goes like, oh, you need to have formal therapeutic disclosure, and you do, and you also want it to go well. So if this doesn't feel right, trust your gut. You've been told for lots of years that your gut isn't right. Your gut is right. So, it's more important, in my opinion, to do this well and to feel supported and have a, like, what's the point of doing this if it's going to have a crummy outcome? So getting things set in place to make sure that you are feeling supported, and I don't know what that looks like. Maybe it's bringing a female therapist in to support you. I don't know, but or switch to this. To me, feels like you don't feel comfortable. You're going to go into it stressed out more than just
which
well,
is
even more
tense.
than even more than a formal therapeutic disclosure already is. It's it's
You don't feel
challenging
safe
enough.
about the whole process, right?
Exactly. The
Mhm.
point is that you feel supported. That there's a plan for you, and this doesn't feel like that. So,
Well, I also want to add that at the risk of, well, I'll just say it. Not everyone has the letter CSAT after their name or has put a center together. A center together is necessarily um, fully good at what they do in this arena. And I think one of the things that goes on that you guys don't know about that is also free is that I consult for therapists every week. And then Tammy and I sit in a group like this with 30, 40 therapists who are coming and asking questions of me, and we discuss them. One of the reasons why I encourage people to call Tammy and reach out and ask for a therapist is because a lot of times she will refer to people who are attending that consultation because they are people who really want to grow and are really curious. And so, I can't say Tammy has more backstory than I do, but I do. The need for you to have more female support, the need for you to maybe get a consultation from someone else who does this work. I think those are good answers.
so the next one, when a couple is starting the journey to recovery, what are some of the most important things you would advise during the early days? We recently heard from a friend that my partner was developing an emotional affair with is moving to our area. I'm incredibly anxious about this. How can we move forward with the likelihood of running into her? We are both seeing CSATs, but would you recommend an APSAT for the betrayed partner instead? I just recently learned about APSAT. So I can tell you about this. APSAT is another organization that trains partners, but ITAP trains certified partner therapists. So CP.
They may not know what ITAP is. Just
Well, so hang on. So APSATs, it was the only thing training partner therapists. Now ITAP that trains CSATs has a partner training. So I think so. Here's the deal: if you're feeling good with the therapist that you have, switching to another therapist is not, is not the answer. And unfortunately, many of the APSAT trained therapists, not all, but some of them are just coaches. And nothing against a coach, but a coach is not a therapist, and they're very different. So if you feel supported with your CSAT, that's more important. And I get the stress of, oh, we may see this person, but I mean, the reality is I have lots of friends here and I hardly ever run into them except in the gym, but it's one of those things where you may or may not. But think about the people that have affairs with people in their neighborhood, and you can get support to get a plan of, like, how will you handle this? How will you handle knowing that person's in the area? It's more important what you do for you and your healthy boundaries. You've got no control over that person. So to me, having that person move in, I get it, uncomfortable, head games. But what is your plan if this person, you see them in the grocery store? What is
Right.
your plan?
Yeah, and I agree. I think Tammy, there's a number of questions here, by the way, which the first one is what are the most important things you would
Oh
advise
yeah,
a couple in
missed
the
that.
early days. And Tammy will often talk about a daily check-in and making sure. And I think if you probably have the link to the Thanos, which not, is that what you recommend? I think.
It's one of them, and I will quick find that one because I know where it is, so I will
But there are
find it.
many different, I think this is again a therapist question, since because they know what your issues are and what you need to work on. For some, it might be holding hands. For some, it might only be talking while they're with a therapist. For others, it might be, you know, having a nightly check-in. But so I can't tell you what are the most important things that you would advise during the early days. I can say that people who know you well and people who are working on these issues with you will know better. Also, um, again, back to the partners recoveries groups, there are women who will help you understand what has worked best in their relationship and healing. People who are further along. There are men's support groups and addicts groups that we run free, where the guys will say, "Gee, how do we move forward?" So I appreciate that you see me as an expert, and hopefully I am. And Tammy is an amazing expert. But are you asking people in your own recovery network? Do you have a recovery network? Um, you also you just I believe what people write. And what you said is, we heard that this person's moving to town, and then you said, I'm incredibly anxious about this. Well, what about your husband? What about your partner, male or female or whatever they are? How anxious are they? You see, their job, your partner's job, the addict's job is to come to you and say what Tammy just said, which is, let me tell you my plan for what I'm going to do. And by the way, the plan always has to do, if they run into this person, is I'm going to let you know. You never want to be a spouse. I never want my spouse to find out that I ran into someone I used to have an emotional affair with, but I just didn't tell them. So part of my plan would be, I'm going to let my spouse know. I'm going to let my sponsor know. I'm going to bring it up in a meeting, whatever. But I, as a spouse, as a partner, would want to be presented with a plan that says, look, this is a concern for both of us. Let me tell you what I'm going to do if that happens. That would make me feel better. Also, I'm anxious. I didn't hear anything about the other person being anxious, your husband, your partner, and that makes me worried too. Why isn't he or she anxious? But you should have a plan that's concrete and real, and that he or she is thinking ahead and helping you feel supported with this information.
And if you're only seeing a therapist once a week for 50 minutes, it will be forever for you guys to get us, any kind of real traction. This is a 24/7 issue. So, I just put the, betrayed partner work group. There's also the sex addiction 101 work group. Like, what is your partner doing on a daily basis for recovery? And I like reading. Even Dr. Rob's books are fantastic, but that isn't enough. It's how do we connect and have accountability? I said earlier about one of the questions. It's like, what is the accountability? So what is the 3-circle plan? What is the plan, for navigating all of this? How many 12-step groups? How many of our drop-in groups? All of that is what starts to shift things. But you getting support for your, the anxiety is real. I get it. And what is the plan? So, that would be key. What is the plan for both of you? You don't have any control over him and what he's going to do. And I'm using him and her, but you do have, what am I going to do if I run into this person in the grocery store? What am I going to do? I'm going to have a plan. So.
And by the way, just to add to that, you said you're, rather than looking for another therapist, I don't know what the reason for that or what that would mean, but you're both seeing professionals who deal with these issues. Have you both talked to them about, both of you talk to them either together or separately about how this is going to be managed, how this is going to be handled, all of that? Everyone should be aligned around this. And I don't know who knows what. I don't know who's saying what. I don't know how you found out. You need more information and more support for sure. So yeah, I like this one. Next question.
Okay, I'm worried that after my partner's 90 days sobriety, that when we begin to integrate sex back into our life, that it will feed my partner's addiction. My libido has been virtually non-existent over the past few years, so I think I may be sexually anorexic. I'm concerned that our sex life will not be healthy if I'm worried about my partner's addiction.
Okay, so let's go through this. First of all, I wrote a book called Pro-Dependence, and I strongly believe that there is nothing that I can do to feed your addiction. I can upset you, I can let you down, I can make you feel bad, having sex with someone that you love should be the anti-addiction. You know, if it's intimate, if it's meaningful, if it's connected, then it should actually be have the opposite, which is filling that person up, not emptying them out. As far as oh, by the way, what is sex? You know, what about massages and holding hands and showering together? When a lot of times in my experience, when people say sex, they're talking about some kind of penetrative experience. What about physical and intimacy without necessarily being sexual? What if one of you was sexual and held the other person? There's so many ways that you can reintegrate. And there might be even some books about that, Tammy. I'm thinking about the Burkaz and other folks
Hmm.
who've written about reintegrating sex back into their lives. But just to that, when you say sex, I really want you to think about, what does that mean? The word that I would use is intimacy. How can we integrate intimacy back into our life? Um, the other thing is that I don't think you're sexually anorexic. I think that you know, I don't even know what that term means. I do know that if I was scared, if I felt used, if I didn't trust, I wouldn't want to be sexual either. So in terms of your own sexuality, I think that's something that you can work on. First, are you having sex with yourself? Because, you know, that might be one way to look at your own sexuality and try to reawaken it, if you will. And the other thing is, you know, again, can you find ways to be intimate physically that might begin to help you reconnect with your body that aren't necessarily going from 0 to 100? Um, yeah. And by the way, there's that always that I'm worried about this feeding his addiction. Is he worried about it feeding his addiction? Is he talking about his concerns or how it makes him feel? Or are you talking about this together? So just a few things about that. We have time for one more if we make it quick.
My partner says that they have zero urges to participate in any acting out since D-Day 4 months ago. How is that possible if he's an addict?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think there's two answers. This one is the obvious one, which he's lying. And the last thing he wants you to think, or is it a he? Uh, yeah, he. The last thing he wants you to think. It's so funny because I was talking to the addicts today, and we were talking about, you know, sort of success and what do you feel good about when you're leaving, and how do I feel a client has done well in treatment. And I said to them, look, if somebody says I feel great, I've really got this, I'm never going to act out again, I've got it together, I worry about that person. You know, I want the person to be constantly aware that they're vulnerable to this, as they have been their whole lives. So if someone says to me, oh, I have absolutely no desire to do something that I've done for 35 years, I just think, or 25 or 10, I just think, so how is that possible? Doesn't sound right to me. The other piece is that is a different answer, which is um, I'm trying to think of an example. If I was drinking and I had an accident when I was drinking, maybe for a period of time, I would absolutely have no desire to drink because I'd be so horrified with what I did and what happened. But the crisis of the moment doesn't, or the pain of the moment isn't something that you really hold on to. It fades away over time. And so sometimes in the crisis of the moment, it's like, oh my God, I never do that again. And they have no desire to do it again because they're in trouble, they're freaked out, but that fades away. And I worry, and we often talk about people who, you know, it all went away. You know, I got caught and it's like, now I don't want to do it anymore. Well, it'll be back. And when it is back, are you prepared for that? Because just the fact that something disappears because you're in crisis doesn't mean that it's gone away forever. So, Tammy, thanks.
Yeah,
Nice
that's
to.
called denial. I just want to tag on. That's called denial with a capital D. And, yes. So he's either using some other form of acting out, food, gaming, it's something else, or it's just a matter of time. The pressure cooker, continues to boil. And then, oh, what happened? All of a sudden, I'm doing the same thing. I mean, yeah. So, yeah.
Or he's still doing it lying to you. You know,
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
and what I didn't hear here is I'm in therapy, or we're going to
Right.
meetings, or
Yeah.
here's where I'm getting support, or, you know, a lot of the questions you guys ask us, I'm going to say really quickly, I am glad to answer, and I think Tammy is too. And I really want to make sure that you're not just asking us. You know, I think that other person in a meeting who's been through that situation in their marriage or this, they know us more than I do. Because they're going through it in the moment. And so I hope that you take advantage of the resources that cost nothing to attend and really hearing and listening. We say in 12-step programs, I want to hear that person who's just a little bit ahead of me. That person who's they've been sober for a while longer, or they went through disclosure, or I want to hear how they got from where I am to there. And so the more you check in with other people, the better off you're going to be. I'm going to go feed my
Thank you,
dog
Dr.
now.
Rob. Yeah.
Have a good
Glad
day.
you're back. Bye, everybody.
Bye.